And one.
Welcome to Ninon Speaks Media Image. I'm Ninon Rosa, and I'm going to be your host for the next hour. And as usual, I always say we have incredible shows. They are all incredible. And we have an outstanding guest today. And it's going to be quite interesting for a lot of us to find out what PIs do. And we all know what a PI is. He's a private investigator, and that's what he does. He established a company in 1982, and it was called Empire Investments. And obviously he started this because he'd been in the private eye business for some time, but we're going to find out exactly what it is. He's got a tremendous amount of credits to him, but I'm not going to talk about that, and I'm not going to waste time. I'm going to get right into Robert Cresson. Robert Cresson, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Nino, and again, thank you for having me on your show. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Yeah, no, we've been sort of doodling around this, and it took a long time to get us two together on this show, and at last we've made it. And what you do, I have been fascinated all my life with the PI investigation department of this world. I happen to have been friendly, actually dated a guy called Freddie Otash, and he was one of the biggest private eyes in Los Angeles. And did you ever know him at all?
No, I didn't. What can I ask you what year that was? What his background was? Or?
Yeah, he started in the police department in the 60s and 70s. I knew him.
Okay.
And he kind of went out of it probably the early 70s.
But then he became a private investigator, like what year? Like in the
80s? I think in the 60s and 70s.
Oh, 60s and 70s. Okay, because I started my company in 1982, so I've been doing this for a couple years myself.
Yeah, you've been doing this a long, long time. Were you actually in anything with the private, being in that sort of department before you started your business?
Yes, I was. I started freelancing for a number of agencies while I was going through college. Initially, I was shooting for the FBI or the CIA, but the more I learned about them and the more I learned about the private sector, the more I found the private sector to be just a better fit for me. I love the freedom, I love the chance to travel, and I love that no one tells me where to live or where to be when other than my clients.
So you can actually choose your own jobs and your destination and how long you want the job for, or if you want the job at all. So you've actually got a pretty good life.
Oh, absolutely. I've been paid to be at some of the best resorts in the world, some of the best places in the world. It's incredible. I mean, we've stayed. Am I allowed to say hotel names or no or yes?
You can say anything you want.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's no point.
We'll do that off air, right? But no, I mean, one job I lived at a Ritz-Carlton for 9 weeks. Actually, let's just say in a high rent district of Florida. We'll leave it at that.
That's what I forgot.
Too much of my target, but here's one I did years ago. I stayed at the Phoenician in Scottsdale, Arizona for 2 weeks. Very enjoyable job.
And that must be really, really wonderful because everything's taken care of, right? You don't have to pay for a thing.
Well, that's right. I don't pay for a thing, but we're usually working anywhere from 12 to 18 hours a day because you never know when the people are going to leave. And you set traps, you set things, but it's a roller coaster ride, and it's a lot of hours. But to me, it's so much fun. It's just a challenge. I love the challenge of it all.
It sounds like it. And why did you like the challenge when you started going? Was this something you thought of when you were a child? This is something you wanted to do to investigate and find out what people were doing and not doing? And where did this all come from?
Actually, I just got lucky. I was going through college for criminology, and I started working part-time for an investigative firm. And I just enjoyed it. I just enjoyed the different aspects of it. Each case was different. You role play, it's almost like being theatrical. It's anywhere from being in a suit to being in sweatpants, to being like a homeless person. I dug in my hole in a snowbank once and caught people. You literally had to spend 2 days living in a snowbank, and just punched a hole through it for my camera.
Oh, wow. Now you have to you have to get yourself into or accept different jobs. You said like a homeless thing. Would you have to act like a homeless person, and have you done that?
Oh, absolutely. I've done that many times. But now, as I get older, I've established...
the Ritz-Carlton, I know, okay.
Yeah, I wasn't homeless there, but... No, we have people that were actually homeless people at one point. We have a woman that's a bag lady that does it for us. But she's not a bag lady now, but she portrays that role for us very, very, very well. And so again, she would be one of our players out in the field that she would call us and let us know when our target's moving, and nobody would suspect her. Whereas some of the typical PI firms, what they'll do is they'll use guys in cars, and people pick out strangers very quickly.
Of
So you
course.
have to fit into the environment. So if you can put a homeless person in there, we do it. In Florida, what we actually used was 6 other agencies tried that job before we got it. And what I did was actually use a 22-year-old girl reading a book under a palm tree. The worst she had was getting hit on and getting sunburns. We got her suntan lotion, and she just became friendly with a lot of the gentlemen. And we never got caught. We got our target, and we did our thing.
Now, what were you doing with a homeless person now? Why were you? I'm going to ask you about the case because that sounds like a very strange case. What are you going to get out of a homeless person?
Oh, no, no, no. The person's not homeless, our target. We just pretend we put a
Oh,
person
no,
on.
no, I know that. No, but who were you trying to get in the homeless community?
No, no, no. It wasn't we're watching somebody in a homeless community. We're actually near a very high-end closed community, a closed high-rise apartment. But there's a place where you can't park on the street. So
Oh,
what are your opportunities? There's homeless people around, so we actually had someone dress up as a homeless person on
I
the
get it.
street.
Okay.
Never approached, actually got donations of money and cups. They were able to call us, so then our team, 1 mile up, 1 mile down, was able to converge on our person when the limousine came in to pick them up.
Wow. Do you ever do any work for the FBI and the CIA? Do they ever want you or do they not want you?
A little of both. We've had conversations, and I know a lot of the men when they men and women when they retire. I'm part of different groups. Intelnet's one of them. There, it's former every letter of the alphabet government officials when they retire. I have a lot of them that are friends, and I'll do their technical work when they retire and start their own PI firms. But I try to stay out of politics as much as I can.
Yeah,
I'm more proud of it. I work for you. If I'm working and you're my boss, I give you what you want, and I stay out of the political arena.
out of the political ring. So, obviously, the FBI and the CIA is political. Is
That's
what
right.
it
That's
is. It is. So then another question out there would be, would it be better for people to have a private detective than to go to the CIA or FBI?
Well, again, it depends on what they're faced with. If someone was kidnapped, it all depends on the situation. I mean, if you have a cheating husband or cheating wife, you can't call the CIA or the FBI. It just depends on what you're facing, what your problem is, what your situation is, and what the response is from the authorities. A lot of times law enforcement is so backlogged. I know here in Pennsylvania, it takes the state police up to 6 months to fume for fingerprints, whereas we can do it same day. And we literally have the person that retired from the state police as one of our operatives, and we also have a person retired from Secret Service that does our fingerprinting here.
So
So
you employ all these different people that have actually truly had the experience.
absolutely. I'm just like the
And have they worked for the FBI and CIA as before?
Yes, yes. And we have one gentleman that's retired from Secret Service that does our fingerprints. He's amazing. He can take a check that's been handled by 100 people and determine that you touched it. So he's incredible. But I have the machinery that he needs to test for fingerprints with. I own that kind of equipment.
So you've actually built this whole thing up. So you have, how big a staff do you have, Robert?
It's not so much the staff as we use contractors because, like the gentleman from the Secret Service, he's retired now. So when we need him, we call him. We try to give him as much notice as we can. We know what his price point is to get him interested, and we know what his price point is to drop everything and just get on a flight within an hour. So we price it accordingly. We give him a call, and we work him in when we need him. That's all. It's
Now,
just like
yeah, I know that you've been doing an awful lot of trafficking for these children, and I know that's a lot of stuff you probably can't talk about. But how bad a situation are we in that seems to be getting bigger and bigger with this trafficking of children?
Yeah, it's terrible. That plus the bullying too just gets to me. There was just a bullying incident here in Pennsylvania where one of the children actually used his cell phone to record the bullying, and the child that recorded it, because we have two-party consent for audio in Pennsylvania, had charges pressed against him instead of the bullies. It's so terrible, and just the way the system is right now. I just felt so bad for that situation.
So the young man that did the filming of it to show what actually happened was the one that got into trouble?
Yes. Yeah, because of the way the law is written.
So what happened to the poor kid that got bullied, and what happened to the kids that bullied him? Nothing.
a lot less than what happened to the young boy that made the recording. But they're actually trying to change legislation now to give it a loophole for bullies. I was working on actually developing an app to enable children to do this,
Hmm.
because I would like to see a call center for the schools where it would go into a database, and then the children would get help. And then if it's repetitive, there would be reprimands, and step it up with either law enforcement. If that doesn't work, we'll bring media crews in. I just think it really needs to be done.
It's funny, I used to have a program called Voices of Tomorrow. Voices of Tomorrow was the young kids, and I gave the young children a platform where they could speak out, and it was a half-hour show, and I had it every day for 16 years. And I used to do a lot of cases, and what you're talking about, there was a woman in Los Angeles, I forget her name now, Elaine something, I forgot the last name, and she actually had a place where children could call into, which was for bullying or for, depressed or whatever case they had. She had this hotline where the kids, you'd be surprised how many children called in. I was shocked that there were so many children, but they had a place to go.
Right. See, I really find, there's a need for that. I'd love to do something like that with you, when you're ready, Nina, and we'll start something else, another project, right?
Another project. Well, what do they say? Give a busy person something to do because it'll get done.
That's right. That's for
Because
sure.
that's how they are. So, what I wanted to ask you is that you obviously carry around a tremendous amount of secrets within your body. How hard is that for you? Because you obviously can't talk about a lot of stuff, but you carry it around with you. How do you manage that in an everyday life of knowing certain things that go on?
Well, you try to do, stress reduction things. You work out. I like to pedal a bike, or I'll ride a motorcycle, or I'll go kayaking. And I just enjoy the outdoors. I try to get out once in a while, because I call it getting peopled out, where because I entertain a lot too, where we host parties to up to 1,000 people at a party about once a month. And again, it all just mounts. You're exactly right. It bottles up. And
There must be some cases that are really, really tough on you, that you just zip the mouth and can't say anything. I mean, and you're the only person that's carrying that. I mean, that must be so stressful.
I never looked at it as stress as much as, again, I get such satisfaction in solving it. So again, I like the challenge of solving the puzzle, or I like the challenge of fixing a case that no one ever was able to get the answer for before. So again, that's why I've invested so much in all this equipment, because again, we have the equipment these other guys don't. So we're able to do things other people can't. We're able to do impossible things with cameras. I mean, we can read a license plate at 12 miles in daylight and 2 miles in total darkness. That's our normal. We do crazy things. I mean, we put cameras in the middle of the forest, and we can catch people poaching, harvesting marijuana, dumping. And again, there's no lights, no power. That's no problem. We have systems to deal with that. And I've been marketing those for the past 10 years.
Wow, so you've been really way, way ahead of the game. Now, where about in the world do you go? Do you go all over the world?
Uh,
Anywhere?
Parts of Europe, I love the Caribbean, and the United States. Certain parts of the world I'd probably stay out of.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
a little bit too risky in some areas.
Yeah, but wait a second. You do have the equipment to go in those areas. I was thinking, wow, you could go into all these areas. If you've got all this great equipment, you could actually really get something going here.
You can, but again, bringing it in is another thing, and you have to have the right contacts through customs, through getting through the authorities. When you're bringing in your team, you have to come in really nondescript. If we're coming in carrying Pelican cases or Zero Halliburton cases, cases that cost anywhere from 300 to 1,000 just for the case, it's going to draw attention to us, because we're carrying 10 of those. I mean, I went to speak in Florida literally just within the past month.
Yeah.
And they thought I was a hitman because of the cases I was carrying. I was approached by 3 people, and they asked me if I was a hitman. And I just had to laugh. I'm like, no, I'm the total opposite. And I gave them my card. And
You're the opposite end of on the opposite end of the totem pole there. So,
That's right.
what has been, what you feel has been your worst case that you didn't solve?
Worst case that I didn't solve. Huh.
Yeah, that you didn't solve. Has there ever been a case that you haven't solved?
Not that, no. Not that if the client keeps us going, and a lot of times if they run out of funding, if we get the media involved, we do it for free. So it really hasn't been any that stick in my mind that we haven't solved.
So you actually, your tenacity is you continue till it's solved.
Absolutely. I had the pleasure. Did you ever watch the movie Rudy?
Yes, I did actually.
I spent 2 hours with that gentleman once at a conference. He actually gave me I bought him dinner, and I had the pleasure of having dinner with him. But I mean, there's a gentleman that got 10 years of no's. So how can I give up on a case after what, a week, a month, 2 months? I mean, 10 years. It took him 10 years to make that movie. So I mean, that gives me my inspiration. He did that. He did that. I mean, he shouldn't even have played football. He made Notre Dame. He shouldn't have got into Notre Dame. He shouldn't have played football. He's the only one to ever get carried off the Notre Dame field. So I mean, that just fires me up. It's like, how can I give up? You
You
know,
can't.
again, it's just sometimes the people that hire us, so you don't know how mentally stable they are. So that's a whole other story in itself. But or someone's just mad at, he's mad at her, she's mad at him, kind of thing, and they're making some things, they're embellishing, let's say.
Do you do you get a lot of that?
We get our fair share of it. It's hard to ferret it out, though. How do you know?
Until you
And
get into the case. You have to get into the case to find out what's going on first. Otherwise, you're right.
exactly,
You don't know.
exactly. But there's some cases out there that are very intriguing to me. And I have a friend in actually New York, and he's someone I'd like to talk to you about at some point. But
Talk
uh,
about it now.
okay, great.
Let's talk about it.
We're actually I'm involved with a nursing home case here in the Pittsburgh area, and we're trying to get some media on that because a person was, let's just say, abused and neglected.
Okay.
But I went down and met with my friend in New York, and he has a case that's even worse than mine. He had a gentleman that was his whole right side was paralyzed from a stroke, and he allegedly took a coat hanger, made a noose, and hung himself. He only had one good arm, but they found him dead. So it looks like somebody killed him in New York. And this poor guy,
This was in the papers, wasn't it?
well, it's really not being explored as well as it should be. So again, I was trying to get a group together, and again, that's something else I'd like to talk to you at some point about, where we would help expose these kind of things and point the media into it and kind of nudge them along. Because what makes today's paper, let's just say it did make today's paper, what's being done about it? Who's
Nothing.
following up on it? And really, is it really being worked or not? And it just, these things just get swept under the rug depending on the new news that comes in. And every day there's new news. There's a bombing, there's a terrorist, there's this, there's that, and then all of a sudden the
That
guy.
gets pushed aside, so then it
Exactly.
never gets to the media. So what you're saying, there should be a special place for media, which probably you and I should really get together and get this out there, because I'm absolutely with you on this 100%. Because there's a lot of people that go to jail that should never have gone to jail because something, or nobody did their homework, or they put papers aside because something else happened, and this person or persons end up in jail where they shouldn't be in jail at all. But you get that one person that does, and it's normally one person that does not stop. He keeps going about the case because he knows that person is innocent. And you see this sometimes on the news media, that they've managed to get somebody out that spent 25 years in jail and they didn't even do it. But you have that one person that will not go off the case, that goes on and on and on until they find them innocent.
Absolutely, and that's again something else that my friend wants us to get involved in too. He deals in cold cases like that. There are groups out there that do that, and I'm involved with a couple of those right now myself. People being falsely accused, guys being falsely accused of molesting their kids, which is horrific.
Oh,
And
that's horrible.
it goes on more than you think, but sometimes the other partner is manipulating someone just to try to get more money, or they're mad because the husband now has a younger girlfriend or something. But it goes both ways. Guys accuse women of things too. But again, we deal with a lot of those types of issues, which are tough.
Do you get more women accusing the guys of things? Probably.
No, actually, it's about equal here. We get both equally, but usually the women are more dead on. Whereas the guy, there's a higher percentage. Usually when the women come here, I'd say it's about 90-95%. They're right. They may guess the wrong person. They may try to feed me too much information, which is wrong, which we have to ferret out, which gets a little tough because they want to kind of control the case. And whereas the gentleman, sometimes the woman has a friend, and the guy may be gay, but the guy didn't even think of that, and there's nothing there other than a friendship. They're going out talking about shoes together or something. It's benign. Other than she wants to go to Nine West with him or something. So
Do
again,
you, do you ever get any cases like say the man is gay, but he hasn't told his wife, and they've been married for about 10 years or whatever, or however how long, and then all of a sudden, it pops up and it comes up. Ever had cases like that? That there's all of a sudden she's been married to a gay guy, and I mean, I'm sure some women tolerate it. I don't know. What's the answer?
no, absolutely. We've had them go both ways, where we've had the men that were gay or the women that were gay. But there's one that just sticks in my mind because it was a woman that was gay, and she left her husband for a woman and actually wrote a book about it, and it just devastated them. And we were hired to it was inside of a building, and he owned the building. We actually had to hide inside the building to catch them doing their thing, for the evidence. But I remember that case. But we've done the other type of cases too, and we've actually aired some of those on the radio. We've done those locally here in Pittsburgh. We used to do them around Valentine's Day, and we had one case where it was exactly like what you were just laying out, where the man was gay, and they had been married for years, and the woman had no idea of it.
So, what was the woman's reaction? Because such a shock to her? I mean, I'm thinking of myself. What my reaction would be, I don't know, because I'm not in the situation, so I can't answer that. What was her reaction?
It devastates them because again, they just feel so blindsided. A lot of them wish it would just be another woman instead of a man. But here's one. Okay, if you can bear with me, I'll try to keep this brief. But here's again, I'm not telling you
I love it.
anything, but I mean, this is an actual case that I did, and I felt so bad for this person. But okay, it was a woman that hired me. But okay, understand this woman was divorced from a man initially.
Okay.
It devastated her. It affected her so much she gave up on men and went to women. And this woman was in her 70s when she hired me. And she was a sweetheart. I didn't even want to work for her. I wanted to say, come on, just, you're imagining things. But she was now living with a woman that was her partner.
Yeah.
And I actually had to tell her that the woman was cheating on her. And that was very hard. Like you said, how do I hold these secrets? It's harder for me to tell the client the results a lot of times because I'm a romantic at heart. I want people to work it out. I want to figure out a way to help them fix it. I want to get them help. I want to make them realize this is a minor blip. I mean, if someone's been together for years, but I had to tell this woman was cheating on her.
And but wait a second, was she cheating with another woman or was she cheating with another man?
Good question. I should kid with you, but I'll keep it G-rated. No, it was actually another woman, but it was another woman. But she said, "I'm giving
sex."
but my client actually laughed and she thanked me and she actually shook my hand. I said, "What are you going to do now?" She said, "I'm giving up on people. I'm just going to have 2 dogs and 2 cats." And
good for her. But at 70, that must have been awfully hard on her.
Right. No, it was. It really was. But some of these cases are just so hard. We had a client just in the past couple of years where she had been with her man for 25 years, and you just want to see them work out. I mean, when you're with someone that many years, I mean, it's like work it out on the back nine. I mean, it's like playing golf. You know how to play it all. I mean, just come on, stay on the course and just turn it around. And it's
somebody else win for a change.
It's just sad when they break up. I try to help them. Again, try to establish, and reestablish a relationship.
Absolutely. Now, what about the corporate world? You do a lot of stuff with the corporate world, and we know there's a lot of stuff comes in the front door and goes out of the back door. Of a lot of people working for these companies, because I've actually known a couple of them where they've had problems with, especially with the computer world, of them taking stuff from the computer and sending it elsewhere. How is that going with this sort of big corporate companies with these computers?
No, we deal with that a lot, not only computers, but just information and listening, telephone systems, acoustical problems. We dealt with one corporation where their boardroom was located in an area where they had a public restroom right underneath the boardroom. And all I did was climb onto the bathroom toilet and put a contact mic up above, and I could listen to everything in the boardroom. So I do war games on corporations to show them weaknesses because, again, people spy if the price is right. If it's, some high-end research and development, say like a drug company or somebody spending a lot in new technology.
Yes.
Well, what's it worth to the spies? So then you have to look at like what they would invest to spy on the company. So it can be everything from an invisible laser beam to something as simple as a microphone or a transmitter or, again, the computer system.
Absolutely. How does somebody in a corporation, how do they realize that something's going on? And obviously then they're going to contact you. How do they sort of get to that point of suddenly saying, whoops, I'm being attacked by my own staff and they're taking stuff away from me? And, how does that the person, which is obviously the CEO, how does he actually find that out?
Well, that varies company to company. And again, the larger the company, they have security departments, and a lot of the heads of the security departments are ex-FBI or ex-DEA or ex, whatever. And then they interface with us. But again, it just depends on the corporation. I mean, we dealt with one large engineering firm where they actually saw their blueprints at a manufacturing plant that they knew shouldn't have been there. So they just stumbled upon it. So again, it just depends on what it is, or pricing and marketing come down or something. It just depends on the item.
The reason I was asking that question is for our viewers, so that they can actually sort of, watch out, because, a CEO is in charge of everybody, and he has to employ a lot of people of work that he can't do, and that's the reason why he employs them. Either he can't do it, or it's too much work for him to do himself. So he has to employ all these people. So it's a matter of, how do you check them out when they come in, and how do you know how good they are, and how do you know how honest they are? I mean, that must be pretty tough, and that's where, would you come in on that sometimes?
Oh, absolutely. How honest they are. We test them. We would, try to bribe someone, or we would try to see how secure the information is. We come in after hours. Are the doors locked? Are the drawers locked? Are they stealing information? Again, it just, we set up traps. We set up hidden cameras, and we watch them, because it's not only the negative aspect, though, too, because if we come in to watch, we're going to actually be telling the CEO who's actually good for the company, too, who's staying the extra hours, who's working through the lunch hours, who's actually doing 110% and not sitting there talking on the phone to their girlfriend, or watching internet porn on company time. Again, it's a reality of what goes on, though, in the world.
That's interesting, because you go in for one thing and you come out with something else. You could go in for one thing that's really not that bad, and then you could be going through everything and think, wait a second, you got bigger problems than this one.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah, I could tell you stories for weeks on that one, but
tell me a good one on that.
oh my God.
Yeah, I know. We've got several days. No, we don't have several days. But
well, okay, here. Okay, I'll take it. We went in, that company thought they had a theft problem, and we hid cameras in the company to catch this person. But what the person was actually doing was going into the CEO's office and watching internet porn and masturbating in his boss's office. So, I mean, they thought they had a theft problem, and here was a guy that was literally watching porn in the guy's office. But at least it was just regular porn. Think about if that person would have been in the boss's office watching kiddie porn. The boss would have been arrested. The PR would have went crazy on his company. But thank God they hired us, and we caught it, and we dealt with it, below the radar, so no one knew about it. But again, their computer system was just not secure at all, and their doors were not secure. It was ridiculous.
So he just went in. The guy was just fantasizing that he was the boss and he was the COA and he could do anything he wanted, and that's what he did.
That's it.
Now, when you have all these, you have a lot of hidden cameras and everything, and how do you get in to do all that? I guess you have to find it out when people aren't there.
Right. We usually get pictures sent to us, or we go in after hours and we take a walkthrough and we see what we're dealing with. But we have suitcases and cases full of equipment that I've done this a lot for the media too, where if I know like what type of ceilings and roughly how far apart the rooms are, we can kind of prejudge some of the things to take, and bring setups with us. But again, a lot of the work we do is custom. I mean, we've done woodworking even where wood trim has been pulled off walls, and we've taken routers and routed behind it to insert the cameras. So literally, we change nothing in the room.
But nobody knows any of those cameras are hidden.
Absolutely not. Right. The only one that knows is hopefully the CEO, and that's it. I mean, that's the way I prefer it, because the more people that know somebody typically will leak it.
Yeah, somebody will. So it's just the one person that should know. Now, have you ever been caught on a job as sort of not being anything, not them knowing whatever, and they know who you are?
No, I've never been caught. Knock on wood. I've been approached many times. I've talked my way out of it.
Yeah.
In fact, I actually became one guy's friend that I was following. I just, I lied to the guy,
You had to.
and he thought I was his friend, but he was somebody that was on workman's comp, and I just lied to him, and I ended up hiding under a rotted log about a week later and catching him doing what he was doing. He was claiming he was bedfast from an injury, and he was trying to sue actually a police department for about $500,000, and this was, God, 15, 20 years ago. And I caught the guy splitting wood and stacking it 10 hours straight. So he
Wow.
definitely wasn't injured. But he actually came over to me with a gun in his pants and he said, "Yeah, I was being followed before. Are you a PI?" And I'm like, "PI? What's that? I'm unemployed, man. I told him I was in construction sales and my boss was a jerk. And I just needed, I told him to go to, you know what? And the guy fired me. And I said, I'm unemployed right now. So I was just hanging out in this park.
So you actually have an answer to every question because you are prepared so well for anything, for anybody to throw anything at you. I don't mean literally throw it at you, but I mean to talk to you and literally sort of ask, you can answer any question.
Well, you can try me now if you want, but yeah, I'm pretty good at it.
I got
I
this.
am pretty good at it. No, because we do role playing. Again, we've been in all kinds of situations, and
What's been your favorite? What is your favorite? Is that being you or just being something else?
no, it depends on my mood because I like to kid around a lot. Yeah, I kid and have fun a lot, when I go out, but even just in a public persona. But I don't know. My favorite individual case was actually the first case I ever got when I started my firm when I was 25 years old, 1982. Uh,
For how old you are.
yeah, seriously. But no, the first case I ever got it was a cheating case, but this guy was crafty and by trade he looked like a tradesman, but he was into several companies and how can I say? I got to talk in generalities. I don't even know if he's still alive. I know his wife passed away though, but he was exporting cars into a foreign country, and there was a court order on him where he wasn't even supposed to leave the county, let alone the United States or the country. And he left the country. And what I ended up doing was going to his mother's house, knocking on the door. And when I was younger, I had blonde hair and I had blue eyes, so I was tan, and she thought I was
You
Swedish.
haven't changed.
And oh yeah, right. Thank you, you're so kind. But I got into the house and she thought I was Swedish, and she actually brought out cookies and tea, and I sat and chatted with her. And back then it was all letters. This is pre-internet days, when people actually still mailed letters. So I'm dating myself again, but she brought out a box of letters that he sent her that actually had the return address of where he was in Sweden. So I copied that down when she went back into the kitchen, and that's how we caught the guy.
That's amazing. And you know something that is so true about a mother. My husband, who passed away unfortunately, but my husband had a rental TV, so he had 25 rental TV stores at one time. And I asked him, I said, well, how do you keep an eye on all these TVs and everything? Because they're just rented and they could all walk away with them. Well, number one, he got a deposit that's kind of covered the cost. But the most important thing he did, he said, I always find out where the mother is and the mother's phone number. He said, because they always contact their mothers.
That's perfect. You're right. You're exactly right. That's good advice.
Yeah, and that's what he did. He said, because any time if you're renting anything, whatever you're doing, and you want to get hold of that person, you sort of think, well, in case this person's a little shady, whatever, they might not be, but the mother, they'll always be in touch with their mother.
That's right.
But I'm going to go back with something else, though. You talk about cars being stolen in Sweden. Was it Sweden you said, or Switzerland?
No, that's Sweden. That's back in the early 80s. That's 1982, 83.
I've got news for you. It could have been the same car. My husband and I bought a Rolls Royce down in Los Angeles. We bought this Rolls Royce, and it was not a new one, so I think we gave them 60,000 for it. And I'm driving. My husband bought it for me. This was my first Rolls Royce, and it was in the 80s, early 80s.
Okay.
And he bought this car for me, and I'm driving it around, and I take it into the York dealers in the Valley in Los Angeles. And they take a number down, they're doing it, and they're looking at it and everything else. I get back to the house with it. My husband's sitting there, and he's absolutely, completely soaking wet. And he says, I said, what happened to you? He said, we bought a stolen car.
Oh, geez.
He wasn't worried about the stolen car. He's worried about the 60,000. He's not going to get one. We are now called. We're called by the FBI. We go down to the FBI, And my husband's, my last name is DeRosa. Well, that's not exactly, you know, a good name out there because there's a lot of the mafia are called DeRosa that are from Pittsburgh. He's sitting there and he's asking, he said, and where are you from? He said, Boston. He said, are you sure you're from Boston? And he said, well, yes. And that's not too healthy either because of the DeRosa name. So he said, well, do you have any relatives in Pittsburgh? He says, no. But to cut a long story short, we went down to where there was a doctor that we had bought the car from, and he also had a Porsche, and he had several cars. Anyway, we walked in, and my husband said such a soft personality and a soft voice to him, and we sat down, and he said, I understand this car's stolen, and we'd like to give it back to you, and we'd like our money back. He said, sure, I'll give us back $60,000. I will never forget that, and I'm sitting there like, huh?
That's so cute. You got your money back, though?
We got our money back. But then I didn't have a car, but he went out and bought me another one, another Rolls Royce. But
you still drive Rolls Royces today too, right? Don't you?
I have a Bentley now. Now I have a Bentley, but it's still lovely. I guess once you have them, you can't not have them, and then it's just like a regular car. It's like anybody's car, you know. But right. That was a funny story. But you had a lot of theft with cars and things because it seemed like this guy had the same business as you're talking about from Europe.
Well, what he was doing was actually buying muscle cars, you know, old-time cars, and then exporting them because they were worth about 10 times what they were worth here. I don't know if he was putting anything else into the cars as they're being transported, but I just know that the car valuation was about 10 to 1. But again, I tracked where he was, and, you know, because my client was owed about $3 million, which back in the 80s was a lot of money.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, we got her money anyway.
Do you ever do anything with the drug trade, the drug business, or anything like that?
A little bit. A lot of the domestics we get involved in, sad to say, but a lot of the wives or husbands are using drugs, and that's part of what the demise of the marriage is.
Really?
So, yes, absolutely. And we offer a service which is very unique. I could take, because I'm looking at what's on camera behind you, like your clock or anything that you touch a lot, we can do a residue test and determine if you're using drugs or whoever touches that clock or whoever touches your hairbrush. And, you know, we can do it from hair and, you know, urine and things like that. But we can do, I like doing these confidential drug testing, you know, like your chair you're sitting in. You know, we can do your sweat and things too, your pillowcase. You know, we can test it for drug usage.
Wow. So you're saying a lot of the divorce cases, because I would imagine they're spending a lot of the money in the household to buy drugs.
Absolutely, but then it causes mood swings, irritability, unstableness, and, you know, here's this, you know, husband or wife, and they're feeling, you know, beaten up emotionally because, you know, their husband or wife is, you know, flipping moods, you know, every other hour, you know. But again, it's drug usage. I mean, there's a lot of bad drugs out there that cause people to do things very irrationally. And then the money gets involved, and then they might be selling themselves for sex just to cover the drug habit, and then it spirals down the marriage. But
absolutely, you know, I understand that heroin is back very strong, but it's back in a liquid form, or it's back in a pill form, no, powder form or something. And I understand a lot of the kids in school are now taking it because it's easier to take now.
Right. It's still in stamp form too. It's in small pieces of paper too.
Oh, really?
No, we're involved with that right now, actually, yes.
But you can't obviously talk about that.
No, it's a domestic case that we're involved in, and, you know, we just actually tested positive on drugs today on it.
Oh, really? Do you ever get involved in any of the big cases of drugs, you know, the big dealers?
I try not to.
Oh, you're a smart one.
I've seen some things. Let's just say this: through the years, I've seen more than one transaction go down. You know, with the legendary suitcase and the legendary suitcase of money. Yeah, I've seen that more than once in my career.
Wow. So when you are on a case where you're sort of trying to track somebody, or you're trying to sort of find somebody, how like sort of a car, you know, you're driving and trying to keep up with somebody, do you have different people in different places to follow them or to pick up the trail?
Well, what we've been trying to do for the past, wow, I'm going back now, since the 90s, you know, because old analog cell phones were doing this too. But we wire the car if we have ownership of the car from our client. If my client owns the car, we wire the car. So we follow the car electronically. If we have enough time, we follow the car electronically for a week or two before we start the case. So if I'm following you, Nina, and I follow you electronically for 2 weeks, I know every Tuesday you're at the Bel Air Country Club. So and I know what time you generally arrive. So then I would have my team in place, knowing that you arrived there. I'd be in place before, and then have a secondary team come in after you're in there and after you had a drink or two in you, because then it makes it a lot easier to approach you. But again, it just depends on the person and our target. One, how intelligent they are, how paranoid they are, how rich they are, because everybody's different. But I've done cases where we've had up to 12 people in a hotel just to follow one person.
That's what I was sort of getting at. So, you've got all these people that sort of, and is that worth it, do you think, to have that many people to follow somebody? I guess it all depends on the case.
Well, it's exactly right. What's the person's worth, and what does my client stand to gain? What do they stand to gain? If they stand to gain 10, 50, 100 million, heck yeah, it's worth it. I mean, come on. It's going to be a lot cheaper than, what they stand to lose.
Yeah.
So again, we get to the bottom. We get them proof. We get them video proof. I mean, we shoot video. We're not going to tell them a story. We show you the story. That's the difference.
So that's the difference. So now it's proof in the pudding. Yes?
Absolutely. There's proof in the video. A picture's worth 1,000 words. Think of what video's worth. I mean.
Well, absolutely. If you've got video on that, and how do you manage to keep up with the video all the time? Because how far does a video go? I mean, you said you've got 12 miles you can do with a car.
Oh, well, no. We can read a license plate from 12 miles away. Yeah. I mean, that's what our optics can do.
Yeah, but what about video? You have to be pretty close for video, don't you?
No. We can be up to 12 miles away.
Oh, you can still be 12 miles. Oh, wow.
No, we can be just about anywhere.
Now, what have you seen the difference in technology from when you started and where you are now? I mean, it must be. I don't know if it's.
Oh my God! If you hold that thought, there's someone here. I'll send them to get something to show you. Hang on one second. Can you grab that old camera? It's in my showcase. The big one, and grab a small board camera. I'm gonna try to hold two up for you in the camera here if I can. I just sent one of our investigators out to grab something out of the showroom, because I'll show you where it used to be and where it is now. But it's so exciting to me because, compared to what we had to do before. I mean, come on. We won't date ourselves, but you and I have, been driving before GPS and the old paper maps, and I mean, remember the days of the pay phones before the cell phone? Then you had a bag phone and the brick phone that was huge.
Robert, talk for yourself.
Well, I'm saying some of your friends, not you, Nino.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll take these two. Okay, this is what we use today. If you can see this camera?
I can see that. Yeah, sure.
Okay, that's what we hide today typically. You see how big it is? It's about the size of a quarter.
Yes.
Okay. But this is what I used to hide way back in it. Oops, I can't even get it all in the camera. I'm sorry. Here, hold it. Wow. This is what we used to hide.
See, now you had to hide that so people wouldn't know what you were doing, whereas this is easy. You just put this in your pocket.
Right. But we used to hide this big thing in the ceiling. And pray the ceiling didn't collapse, because a lot of times the ceiling would buckle with the weight of our cameras. So we'd have to reinforce it with harnesses up in the ceiling. It was a lot of work. But now, these little cameras like this are like nothing to hide, I mean, we even have smaller ones, but I don't show you our good stuff. This is pretty good, but we got better stuff, but we don't show everything we got. We're like good magicians.
Well, you can't, because you also have a pinhole cameras. Pinhole cameras.
Well, that's what this little one is right here.
That's the pinhole camera.
Yes, it is. And only right in the center is the camera. I need a 1/16 inch hole to see through. That's it.
That's all.
So what I do when I hide it in the ceiling, you use a paper clip to make my hole. So I make a paper clip hole, and if you have an architectural style ceiling, they already have those holes in it. So I use one of those holes, and I just clean it out. I route out behind it, and I drop these in. I used to teach a class in this actually 15 years ago.
No, when you put those up, so you've got a couple of them up there, and everybody's having a meeting in this room, and supposedly they don't know there's a camera on, and then all of a sudden somebody turns around and says, "Is there a camera on in this room?" or "Can I see a camera on anything?" Does that ever happen?
Never. No one's ever found my cameras. Never. That doesn't happen to me. No. We spend so much time putting in. You would not find our camera. It's impossible. You won't find. I guarantee you that. You will not.
That's a good plug for you.
It is what it is. I mean, I've been doing this a long time.
You have. Now, if anybody wants to get hold of you, let's give you a little plug right now. How can they get hold of you, Robert?
My website would be the easiest, so they can explore more of what we do, and it's just Empire. It's EMPIRE.
Okay.
And abbreviate investigation, INV, So it's empireinv.com. And my phone number is 1-800-860-6068, where they can always call you because you always have a way of getting hold of me on the spot at any time, day or night.
I think you can always be found. You seem like one of these people. It's funny, you've got such an incredible personality. You don't look like an investigator. You do not look like a PI. You've got this incredible, and this is probably why you get away with so much, because I can see you do, because of your personality. You've got the most incredible personality for the job you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. You're too kind. I dress the role, though. And again, this is my appearance for corporations and for parties. But believe me, I dress up and down, and I role play a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do all kind of. That's right. I do all kind of crazy people out there.
Now, I was talking before about this trafficking, but what about child abduction? What is going on with this? Because in fact, I had a young lady on one of my shows, and she has a problem with two boys, and whatever's happened with that, I don't know, because I can't be involved in it because she doesn't want anyone involved in it. But child abduction is an awful lot. How do you handle that? Because that's so delicate.
Well, each case is different. I need to speak to someone. Usually, I'd like to look at their file first, see what's been done to try to find them. But then I would pick their brain. It can be done. I mean, just like you mentioned before. I mean, you hit it dead on already once, Nina. Let's go back to our conversation and encapsulate some of the things we covered. Okay. You nailed it when you said watch the mother. That if the let's say the husband steals the child, is the mother still alive and is he in good terms with her? If not, who's his best friend?
His mother.
What are his hobbies? And different things like that. And people are creatures of habit. That even if the guy leaves state and goes somewhere else, if the guy's like a Corvette freak, he's into Corvettes or Bentleys, I'll pick on you for a moment.
All right.
Then all we do is take out the Bentley place or go in and talk to them and find out when he gets his car serviced or if he has one, or go to a Bentley meet or a Bentley show, or is there a Bentley big show, national show around? And the Bentley magazine, does he get it? Is there a Bentley club he's a member of? And then all the social media just makes it a lot easier too.
Well, that's amazing what you just said. When we don't think of a person's everyday life is where you can get your information, because we all have an everyday life. We all do certain things every day unless we're out of town, but mostly certain places we get the car fixed, we go to hair, we buy groceries, there's lots of things we do so automatically that you can be found.
Absolutely. You'd have to totally change everything that you do, which is hard to do. You'd have to change everything you like, disassociate from all of your friends. And I've had to do this when I've done a lot of undercover work before I started my company. And that was the toughest thing. When I went undercover and I did so many different roles. And you could never tell them you're a detective, and you could not go into the agency. And I was everything from a mill worker to a warehouseman to I was even a minister once as a cover. But again, it just depends.
How did the ministry go? That's interesting.
I got all my praises.
Praise the Lord.
Praise God as we pass around the collection plate. Again, it was amen. But no, again, it was just a cover that I used that worked very well. But again, some of those jobs were a little bit dangerous. It just they were what they were.
So you kind of like living on the edge. You can't. Well, you did, because you probably don't do that as much now. You get people to do that for you, right?
Well, no, I'd still like to go out on these cases, and honestly, some of these, if we get caught, I mean, we've done them where we're following a billionaire, and the billionaire may know the owner of the hotel that we're in watching this gentleman. So in reality, what people of wealth can do. So I love living on the edge. I'm a thrill seeker.
You love the thrill of life.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'm going to squeeze out every drop. I'm going to leave going, woohoo, the last day of my life, doing what I do. But
listen, that's a great name for a show, Thrill Seeker.
That's right. But I've done everything from racing cars to racing boats, and it's just that adrenaline rush. And when you're catching somebody doing something that they shouldn't be doing, your heart starts pumping. And everybody that works here goes through the same thing, or we don't keep them. They either get passionate about them or we get them out of here, because there's long hours. I mean, it's no like work 8 hours and get breaks in between. I mean, you could be sitting in the woods, or I've been in the ceiling for 2 days. I mean, in the ceiling on a 3 feet by 2 feet piece of plywood, and I couldn't leave for 2 days.
So what makes you do that? What makes you sort of, is it the beginning, or is it the outcome that you're you don't mind doing that for?
I like the challenge. I just like some off the wall, bizarre challenge. It'd be like, if I met you somewhere in public or something, if you sat there and challenged me, if it wasn't too crazy, I'd probably go do something crazy. I don't care. It's just for the fun of it. It's just for the moment. It's like, why do we get on a roller coaster? It's for that thrill of, you click, 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 climbing up that hill, and you're going to get that rush when you come flying down that roller coaster ride. That's what it does to me. It gives me that rush of racing the car, of doing of just living life. And to me, I just enjoy it. And the process is I make a satisfied customer. So it comes around full circle.
See,
And
that's what I love. I love the challenge of life. I love all different things, and especially if someone says you can't do something. That's even forget that. It's like, okay, can't do it.
Absolutely. That's why I enjoyed speaking with Rudy so much. But again, my playground changes. I don't work just in like a 2-mile square radius in some small town or something.
You could never do that.
I work globally. I mean, the phone could ring, and we're packing up. Man, we have grab bags here where we just grab bags and we're gone. I mean, we have passports, we have, the money, we have the credit cards sitting around in different people's names. We have even different credit cards and, for different people to role play. But again, it's just the thrill of coming in and landing and bringing your team in and pulling off a case.
Wow. Now, I want to go back to the child abduction thing. Is it the child abduction thing mostly kept in the family, either the mother taking the children or the father taking the children, or is it a lot of just pure abduction? I mean, we've had a lot of really bizarre cases on the television, not all of them have been put out there, which they should be, but they're not. And is it mostly the mother and the father that take the children?
Well, it goes both those ways, but then there's really a sicker element, and I was in, well, okay, you asked me, so I'm going to tell you.
I want to know.
Okay, there's a worse element. I was involved in this a long time ago, too, and it's for child prostitution.
Yes.
And the children are being sold, and what happens is they're sold as sex slaves, and if they don't perform properly, this is what gets worse. I mean, it gets worse because if they don't perform as a prostitute, there's actually what's called snuff movies, and people pay to kill children and film it, and that's what happens. Is yes, yeah.
I mean, I've heard some pretty bizarre things, but I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I was actually involved in an investigation years ago to help catch some of these people that do that. That was years ago. And I try to stay away from that kind of work because that just is really emotional. Even when I do children that are kidnapped and we bring them back, I don't like taking kids from the mothers, and sometimes the mothers just don't have mental capacity to take care of the children. But we've done that through the years. But that mother's scream when you take that child, it goes through you. Oh, I take a week off every time I do those, and it's just, I haven't even done one of those in years now, but I still remember those.
Yeah.
And it's so horrific. But again, it's just if the dad has custody and the mother's mentally ill, and they come and grab the child and take off with it, sometimes we'll get hired to come in with a team and snag the child. And I mean, it's like what you see on TV. We come in with hoods on and cars are unmarked, and we have teams that grab the woman and hold her. Some teams grab the child. I mean, we've done all that. We've broken down doors to get kids, and we've done the whole thing.
It is. But I think it's harder for a woman to have her child taken away than a father, because the woman has, kind of has such an attachment to that child. And I'm not saying the father doesn't, but she has such an attachment to that child that it's like taking her life away.
Right. That's true. That's very true.
Because they have that sort of, really attachment to it. We don't have much time. If I want to ask you, do you do many European investigations, and are they better, and do you enjoy them better than, or not better, because I can't say better because you like all of them, but what is it like to do it in Europe or wherever you go? Is it very different than here?
Well, in Europe, you just have to, again, make sure that your team fits in, because if we're all American, we're going to stand out. It depends on what part of Europe we're going into. So we'd have to hire some locals, too, to be part of the team if we're doing that. But I've done things in Europe, sure.
But and can you trust the people in Europe?
Well, I'm part of different associations that go globally, and I'm actually on the board. I'm a regional director of one. It's called Council of International Investigators. And so we have operatives in different parts of the world. So I have allegiances and strategic alliances with different companies that are already vetted in, that I know their backgrounds. So if I need a person to have a certain look or capability, I can feel assured and trusted that when I land, this person can handle the job. So again, that's how we skate, having that hire all such a huge staff. We call in other agencies. We kind of help each other. It's not, we're not competing with them. We're bringing them work. I'm going to pay them.
But that's what you do anyway.
Right, exactly.
Kind of bring people work because you as you said, you hire them and they're actually independent because you don't actually have the staff. You just hire whoever you need for whatever job you're doing because they're so different all the time.
Right, and that's what makes it tough. I'm like a contractor, but we're not just building drywall. I mean, we do crazy contracts.
No, you're just living in the drywall.
That's right. That's right. That's right. We're hiding cameras in the drywall.
What sort of cases are your favorite? What do you really like now?
What do I like now? I still like them. I like following wealthy people. I really do. Because
that's because you like staying at the Ritz-Carlton all the time. Driving all the Bentleys. I know, okay.
That's right. I like, but what I like better is that my client's paying for it instead of me.
Absolutely.
No, it's just, it's the cat and mouse game of catching that person, whether it's a man or woman, that thinks they can get away with that they think they're above the law, or they're above treating their spouse with honor, with dignity, with being honest to their partner, whether it's in business or a relationship. And I just like that challenge of capturing that billionaire doing what he shouldn't be doing.
Well, you're probably going to get a lot more jobs because I was reading, what's going on in this world, and we've got a lot more people that don't even actually come onto the map as being very, very poor. They don't even fit onto the map yet because we've got so many of those that are really poor. Then we've got the poverty, middle classes floating around. We have a tremendous, tremendous bunch of millionaires and billionaires now, more than we probably ever had. So, where are we going with this? I mean, and a lot of them are crooks. We all know that, right? Well, you know that, I don't. But a lot of them make a fast buck, or they make it, however they make it. But there's a lot of honest ones, too, out there.
Right. Yeah, just because someone has a name, though, doesn't mean they're a crook. I mean, just like the Rosa. I mean, there's good and bad and everything, right?
I love it.
I meant to ask you, do you cook Italian well? I'm wondering.
Do I cook Italian well? I had to. I was married to an Italian, obviously, for 29 years, and yeah, I cooked. I can cook anything, actually. I'm a pretty good cook. There's the funny noise. What happened, Robert? Okay. I can't hear you. Where are your technical people? Oh, where's the Okay, well, on the actual incredible man and that's our I'll see you. Okay. Robert, it's the pen. We're doing a little bit of detective stuff now. Maybe a little bit. I can't hear you at all. Just close between it.